I mean, this new Barbie movie, for example, that just came out, apparently some of the reviews from people I trust are describing it the way we've seen films and movies for some time now. Presentation of men as inherently toxic and problematic, really. And this subtext of women and girls only being happy when they can be free of men or be in complete control of men, right? So you either liberate from him or you control him. Those are the only two ways you can really, deal with a male and be in a position of comfort and safety. But short of that, he's a problem. And I said this even about Kevin Samuels. I was like, you got one dude on YouTube that you're upset about, but some of the most offensive stuff I remember reading was required reading in graduate school from, some professional feminists that were incredibly misandrous in their frame. So I'm like, so I had to read this, but you have a problem with a YouTuber that you don't have to listen to. Did you see any men throwing parties or celebrating when Bell Hooks died? Ask that question about Kevin Samuels. Did you see women throwing parties? That, you know what I'm saying? It's a very one-way dynamic.
A ton of people are celebrating the death of Kevin Samuels. So it's been confirmed by Kevin Samuels' close friend that he has passed away. And a lot of people are sharing how happy they are that he's dead. Like this woman says, Kevin Samuels died. I had an amazing blueberry muffin today. And Shamir said that, quote, him being dead is extremely funny. All this is proof that if you hurt people's feelings, they'll be glad that you're dead. But what do you think?
But, as egregious as some of the things we've heard, black men in particular, we don't really celebrate that way, especially if it comes to something like people being in pain or death or something like that. There's a baked in chivalry that we have that doesn't really allow for that. I mean, you might have one individual say something problematic, but you don't see a movement of men celebrating any of that, I haven't even released the book yet, and I've lost family members and I won't say friends, but close associates, just off of the content. So
not even just the content that is on YouTube, not even the content coming from the book.
You know what? Actually, neither. Because that would presuppose that the people who are upset at me are actually watching the videos or reading the book. Book isn't even out to be read yet, and they don't watch the videos. What I get are people who've seen the title, and my thumbnails are pretty, they're pretty soft, so it's not like it's anything hardcore. It's the titles, and more than anything, the men in the comments that they're responding to. And somehow those men become a reflection of my argument. But it's like, once you put something in the public sphere, you can't really control who takes wind to it, what they think of it, where they go with it. And folks want you to combat everyone in the comments to have one singular vision. But I try to explain to them, that's not how my spaces work. I want my spaces to be a free space for men to talk. That doesn't mean I agree with everything. It doesn't mean I disagree. It's really a micro thing in each statement. I agree with parts, I disagree with parts. Some parts I'm just indifferent to. Some parts I'm like, yeah, that's really cool. But somehow that becomes a reflection of, and sometimes you get people like family members who are upset from a comment they saw in my Facebook post from someone I've never met from 5 years ago. Part of my book is dealing with what I call the black masculinist turn. And I use that very example. You had men that vehemently disagreed with Kevin, but when they saw women celebrating his death, even that gave them pause, like, whoa, where is that level of intensity coming from? I mean, we could disagree with the cat, but to celebrate it and suggest that this is karma and that somehow he and any other man that thinks this way deserve death.
Fucking, that nigga ain't done nothing to nobody for a motherfucker to celebrate his death. Or he done something so good that they had to celebrate his death. Oh, I'm glad that motherfucker gone. Oh, we can breathe. No, homie. He was helping us. Yeah, he was bringing them down to a level where they needed to be. Look us eye to eye. Because for a long time, them hoes been looking down on us since that TLC song, I Don't Want No Scrub. Nigga in the passenger side of his best friend ride. So, let me borrow your car, and I promise in 2 months I get a car. Yeah, right now, yeah.
And it's just kind of, I think it gave a lot of them pause too, which I think just expanded the content of the space. How did this guy get over 1 million subs on YouTube? How is he outdoing TV channels that have corporate backing? How is this happening? Well, we can dismiss it, but then this many people are celebrating that he's died. That means there's something here. And now you have people to come find out.
You're trying to reach the masses. You'll never reach the masses. But when you reach a critical mass or a tipping point of 10%, the rest of the market tends to follow. Do you see people responding to my content? Do you see it starting conversations? How many platforms have you seen that have responded to Kevin Samuels? How many platforms have you seen where a black man is sitting next to a black woman and they're responding to this video? And then you look in the comment section. How many comedians are talking about it? How many people? What are you talking about?
And my son was telling me this years ago. Him and his 13-year-old friends at the time were listening. I didn't even know that. He's got, 13-year-old friends that are listening to not only me, but a lot of the brothers in the space. I've had brothers that disagree with the manosphere altogether, but they've come and told me, my nephew is watching this. My son is watching this. So it's spread. And, by the time we got to Andrew Tate, teachers were complaining that their male students were watching it. But the irony is, for the most part, boys were being ignored or told they were inherently toxic because they were male.
Right.
And so you leave this void of not speaking to these young men and expecting them to either operate like females or just take in the message that really their only redemption is following what women say.
Incel being these weirdo loner men who are despicable in many ways. Is that you? Are you the intellectual hero to these people?
Sure. Why not? People have been after me for a long time because I've been speaking to disaffected young men. What a terrible thing to do that is. I thought the marginalized were supposed to have a voice.
It's making you emotional. Talk about it.
Well, God, it's very difficult to understand how demoralized people are. And certainly many young men are in that category. And you get these casual insults, these incels. What does it mean? It's like, well, these men, they don't know how to make themselves attractive to women who are very picky, and good for them. Women, be picky. That's your gift, man. Demand high standards from your men. Fair enough. But all these men who are alienated, it's like they're lonesome and they don't know what to do, and everyone piles abuse on them.
And when they don't take to that, now all of a sudden you're shocked. And when they address and engage someone who's actually talking to them, now you're in shock. But you can't leave a whole demographic void of guidance and then be upset when they find their own. Because that's one thing I've found. If a community is not able to produce the institutions that it's always produced, they will find a way, people on the ground, to rebuild it however they can. Most of the time, you're not gonna like it, but it is what it is. So when you saw the loss of, structures for men to transition into manhood, what did we get? Well, you got gangs, especially out of, LA and New York, so on and so forth. But those gangs actually came out of a community need. Right? Police weren't advocating for black communities in the early part of the 20th century. So who were policing black neighborhoods? Teenage boys. When grandma's house, this is apparently, especially the case in LA, you had white racist teenagers that would come through black neighborhoods and throw out windows and attack people. And so when grandma's window gets busted out by the neighborhood white kids, who does she call? She doesn't call her grandson who's doing well in school. She calls that other grandma, the other grandson, in and out of some stuff, and he got some boys, but he ain't afraid to confront those white. But that's the origin of LA gangs. If you look, at some of the film work about that, it started with community need much of the time, and that's where that comes from. So but once you eliminate that and you give no structure for boys, they're going to create their own. The same thing I think is happening in this current moment for young boys across race. They're going to find their guidance wherever they can, especially if you don't respect them enough to even talk to them. Think about the average 14-year-old kid. Who's talking to him? Teachers talk at him. If you look at the rates of kids who are put in detention or expelled, especially for black boys, those numbers tend to be high. And it's not always dependent on academic performance. Much of the time, it's based on behavior, but it's based on behavior as interpreted by mostly white female teachers. So there are a couple of different barriers there that play a role in their engagement. And so for the most part, these boys are not finding anybody who not only talks to them, but addresses their humanity. And so when these boys don't have that access, they're going to create it. Somebody like a Tate, somebody like a Kevin, they're easy to find because their numbers are high, but they're also speaking to them. And if there's any amount of care there, that takes it even further. in the sense that they're loved, they're supported, they have value in some kind of way, shape, or form, that's going to not only get their attention, that's going to keep their attention. But if the only way you can talk at them is to throw them television shows and movies and even commercials that downplay their humanity, tell them that they're nothing but abusers, rapists, and toxic whatever, who's going to want to hear that?
You seen that Gillette commercial?
I heard about it though. You can shave your buddy or something.
No. All these guys are really mad because it's like an anti-masculine Gillette commercial. It makes like every man look like a misogynist piece of shit. It's such a disturbing commercial. It's like over and over again, men doing douchey shit. Like, hey, bro, aren't you selling razors?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? You changing the world with your shitty fucking advertiser-based philosophy? What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Who fucking greenlit this?
You know what I mean? And I think that's the long-term impact. And that's been going on for so long now that mainstream society takes it as a norm. Boys, I think, took it as a norm, even though they began to be more and more disgruntled, but they didn't have a vocabulary to articulate why. You know what I mean? Even in terms of school performance, girls are graduating out, more than boys across the board. The only way, even in the Black community, technically, there are more Black male graduates than female in terms of high school, but that's mostly GED. And most of those young men are going into, non-academic fields, right? But in terms of those who are graduating and moving forward to going to college, it's mostly girls across race. And a lot of that has to do with how they're being taught, who's talking to them, how they're being treated. So they're looking for spaces where they're affirmed.
Hey, if you've made it all the way to the end, please click that like and subscribe button. Also share this with somebody that you think would gain value from it. Click the thumbnail at the top if you want the full video. Click the thumbnail at the bottom if you want a video that's closely related to this. Again, like, share, subscribe. Appreciate you guys for watching. Check out some more of our content. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.